The California desert has witnessed a lot of legendary moments over the decades of tennis history inside the Indian Wells Tennis Garden, but nothing, absolutely nothing, could have prepared the world for what unfolded on the night of Sunday, March 8th, 2026. What was supposed to be a routine third-round matchup inside one of the most celebrated venues in the sport turned into something far more seismic, far more emotionally charged, and far more historically significant than anyone in that packed stadium could have possibly anticipated. Because on this particular night, in front of a roaring crowd of Filipino fans draped in yellow and blue, waving their flags and screaming their hearts out into the cold desert air, Eala didn't just win a tennis match. She shattered a ceiling, broke a record, cracked open a new era, and then, with grace that left the entire world speechless, she reminded every single person watching exactly what this journey has always been about. Let us set the scene for you because you need to feel every second of what happened out there. Coming into this match, the narrative was already electric. Alex had entered Indian Wells ranked at a career-high number 31 in the WTA World Rankings, the first Filipino player in the history of this tournament to ever be seeded in the main draw. 1 year ago, just 12 months prior, she was sitting outside the top 140 in the world. 12 months. Think about that. The rise has been so stratospheric, so relentless, so historically unprecedented that even the most seasoned tennis analysts were running out of comparisons. And yet the Pine Army, that ferocious, passionate, globe-trotting army of Filipino fans who have followed her from Auckland to Melbourne, from Abu Dhabi to Doha, from Dubai to the California desert, they were not surprised at all. They had watched her every match, every comeback, every broken moment followed by an eruption of brilliance. They knew. Her opponent on this night was Coco Gauff, the two-time Grand Slam champion, the American superstar, the world number 4. This rematch was the most anticipated match of the entire 2026 Indian Wells tournament. The draw had delivered it, and the tennis world had circled it in red. Just 17 days earlier in the quarterfinals of the Dubai Tennis Championships, Gauff had handed Alex a clinical 6-0, 6-2, dismantling that felt like a message. That night in Dubai felt like a masterclass from the American, a reminder that even the fastest rising star in tennis still had mountains to climb. So when the draw placed them together again on Stadium 1, the largest tennis-specific stadium in the world with its 16,000 seats, analysts predicted another Gauff clinic. They were not prepared for what Alex had cooking in that brilliant, battle-tested mind of hers. She came out on that court like a woman on a sovereign mission. From the very first game, it was immediately clear that something had shifted. The Alex who walked out on Stadium 1 on this Sunday night was not the same Alex who had been disassembled in Dubai. This one was dialed in, ferociously precise, moving with an authority that made the crowd immediately lean forward in their seats. While Gauff, who leads the entire WTA Tour in double faults in 2026 by a staggering margin, was fighting her own serve from the very beginning, Eala was reading every ball, constructing every point, attacking the net, snapping off drop shot winners that left even Gauff momentarily smiling in disbelief at the sheer audacity. The sixth game of the opening set became the turning point that will live forever in Philippine sports lore. Alex was down 0-40, triple break point, staring down what could have been a momentum-crushing collapse. And then something happened that only the truly great ones can do. She dug down somewhere deeper than the crowd could see, won that game from the precipice of disaster, broke Gauff to go up 4-2, and then proceeded to win 5 consecutive games to seal the first set 6-2 in clinical, devastating fashion. 7 double faults. 7. Gauff, one of the most decorated young players in the history of the sport, was being outplayed on her own turf, in her own country, in front of her own fans. But here is where the night turned from a sporting triumph into something that will define Alex Eala's legacy far beyond any ranking number. Late in the first set, something chilling happened. Gauff, who had appeared slightly off her rhythm from the very start, called for the on-court medical team. The trainer came out, worked on her left shoulder and forearm, and applied a compression bandage. The stadium fell into a sudden, heavy silence. The Pine Army watched with a complex mix of emotions. They wanted this win desperately, but not like this, not at the cost of someone's health. Alex stood respectfully at the baseline, head down, saying nothing, the very picture of sportsmanship in a tense, uncomfortable moment. Gauff returned and fought through into the second set. She was not going to quit without trying. She broke serve in the opening game, and for one brief moment it felt like the story might turn. But Eala immediately broke back and then broke again to lead 2-0, and that was when Coco Gauff walked to the net, looked Alex in the eyes, and said the words that ended the match. "I'm sorry, I hate to do this." It was only the second time in Gauff's entire professional career that she had retired from a WTA-level match, the first since the 2022 Cincinnati Open. The arm injury, described by Gauff herself as feeling like it was on fire, like a nerve was being set ablaze, had made it impossible to continue. The final score read 6-2, 2-0 retirement, but the numbers tell only a fraction of the real story. What those numbers cannot capture is the way Alex Eala stood at the net and responded to Coco's apology with words that immediately went viral around the world. "Thank you, Coco, for being an amazing competitor and an amazing role model," she told her defeated opponent. "I really hope that everything is well and you will recover soon." And then she grabbed the microphone for her on-court interview, and what came out of her mouth next was the moment that transcended sports entirely. "First and foremost, I want to say Happy International Women's Day, everybody." She paused, letting the enormity of the date sink in. March 8th, International Women's Day. Standing on the biggest stage of her career, she had more to say, and she was going to say every word of it. She spoke of the incredible women who had paved the way before her. She spoke with an emotion that was raw and real and came from a place that no script could manufacture. And then, in Tagalog, she looked straight into the eyes of the Filipino fans packed into that stadium and said, "Mabuhay mga kababayan, andito tayo sa California." We are here. The Philippines is here. The fans erupted. Flags waved, people wept openly. And somewhere in the cold California night, the history books were being rewritten in real time. Let's talk about what this result actually means, because the magnitude of it demands to be fully understood. With this victory, Alex Eala advanced to the round of 16 at Indian Wells, the first Filipino player in the history of this tournament to ever reach that stage. This isn't a small milestone. The BNP Paribas Open has been held since 1976. 50 years of tennis, hundreds of players from the Philippines have dreamed of this moment. Alex Eala is the one who made it real. She also climbed the WTA live rankings to world number 28, cracking the top 30 for the very first time in her career. Just over 12 months ago, she was number 140. The climb has been seismic, relentless, and built on some of the most dramatic tennis anyone has seen from a player this young. And consider the company she now keeps in terms of her record against the elite. By defeating Gauff, who despite the retirement was clearly not herself and had been getting outplayed from the very beginning before the injury became overwhelming, Alex improved her record against top 10 opponents to 4 wins and 3 losses. The 4 opponents she has conquered include Madison Keys, Iga Swiatek, Jasmine Paolini, and now Coco Gauff. A combined collection of Grand Slam titles that reads like a Hall of Fame ballot. She has beaten 2 of the top 4 players in the world this season alone. The numbers are not lying, they are screaming the truth. Now let us talk about something that the television cameras and the official press releases cannot fully capture. The cultural earthquake that surrounds every single moment of Alex Eala's story. The BNP Paribas Open is a major event. Tens of thousands of people attend every day. Stars from across the sport descend on the California desert and fill the practice courts and the VIP lounges and the media rooms. And yet, on the night Alex played her second-round match against Yastremska, a late match that stretched toward midnight in the cold, the stadium was packed with Filipino fans who stayed through every agonizing game of a nearly 3-hour, 3-set battle. They did not leave. They screamed. They sang. They waved their flags in the freezing desert air. The tournament's own executives were openly acknowledging the commercial power of what Alex Eala has become. Philippe Dor, the executive of the BNP Paribas Open, told reporters directly, "We love every minute of it. We benefit from it. we promote it. The tournament posted a day in the life video featuring Alex that became, by an enormous margin, the most watched video on their official YouTube channel for all of 2026. When the tournament revealed their class of 2026 on Instagram, a collection of 9 women meant to represent the stars of this tournament. It was 7 top 10 players, 1 well-known American, and Alex Eala. That placement tells you everything. She is not just a story, she is the story. The Filipino diaspora in California alone numbers approximately 1.7 million people, and sports journalist TJ Manotoc captured it perfectly when he said the country has been waiting for the next Manny Pacquiao, an athlete who stops life in its tracks, who makes the roads empty and every screen in the country light up. Alex Eala is becoming that athlete, not just in the Philippines, but globally. Her fan base has exploded across social media. Her Instagram following has more than doubled that of players ranked similarly on the WTA Tour. She is, by every measurable metric, one of the biggest draws in professional tennis right now, not because of a Grand Slam title or a world #1 ranking, but because of who she is, how she plays, how she carries herself, and what she represents. And what does she represent? She represents a country that has always had the heart, but has been waiting for the platform. She represents a generation of Filipino athletes who grew up dreaming of competing at the highest levels of individual world sport and being told, quietly and persistently, that it wasn't their time yet. She represents every girl in Manila or Cebu or Davao or anywhere in the archipelago who picks up a racket and dares to dream about Roland Garros or Wimbledon or the US Open. Every time Alex Eala walks onto a court wearing those colors, she is carrying a weight that most athletes will never understand. And she carries it with a grace and a fight and an emotional intelligence that leaves everyone who witnesses it genuinely moved. Her journey to this moment was anything but smooth or certain. She arrived at the 2025 Indian Wells as a player ranked 140th in the world, unknown to most of the mainstream tennis audience. Then came Miami 2025 as a wild card, and the world was introduced to Alexandra Eala in the most dramatic fashion imaginable. Back-to-back wins over Grand Slam champions Madison Keys at #5 in the world and Iga Swiatek at #2 in the world. Iga Swiatek, the greatest women's player of her generation, gone in straight sets to a 20-year-old from the Philippines who had been outside the top 100 until that very tournament. The tennis world shook, then leaned in, then never looked away again. She went all the way to the semifinals in Miami, became the first Filipino player to reach a WTA 1000 semifinal, and launched herself out of that tournament into a new stratosphere. Everything that has followed has been a continuation of that story. The Eastbourne Final, the first WTA 125 title in Guadalajara. The year-end ranking of 50, having started that year outside the top 100. And then 2026 began and the pace only accelerated. Auckland semifinals, Abu Dhabi quarterfinals, Dubai quarterfinals, including a stunning upset of world #7 Jasmine Paolini. And now Indian Wells, the round of 16, world #28. Each tournament has brought a new number, a new milestone, a new demonstration that this is not a flash in the pan, but a sustained, building, relentless force of nature. The fact that she trains at the Rafa Nadal Academy in Mallorca, Spain, is not incidental to this story. It is central to it. Her coach, Sandro Villain, who made the trip with her to Indian Wells, operates within a system built by one of the greatest competitors the sport has ever seen, a man who built his entire career on refusing to accept physical and psychological limits. When you watch Alex Eala battle back from 0-40 deficits, or save match points in a third set against Yastremska, or respond to a 6-0, 6-2 beatdown in Dubai by showing up 17 days later and dominating the same opponent on a bigger stage, you are seeing the philosophy of that academy in action. You are watching a player who has been trained to believe at every level of her being that the match is never over until the final point is played. The road ahead is equally fascinating. Up next in the round of 16 at Indian Wells is Linda Noskova of the Czech Republic, the 14th seed, who had to grind through a brutal 3-set battle against Sorana Cirstea to advance. If Alex defeats Noskova, she could potentially rise as high as world number 24 on the live rankings. A quarter-final appearance at Indian Wells would represent yet another historic first for Filipino tennis. The Miami Open follows directly after, and that is where Alex's story first exploded into global consciousness last year, meaning she will need to defend those semifinal points while trying to go even deeper. The pressure of defending points is one of the most challenging aspects of life as a rising force on the WTA Tour, and it will be the next test of just how resilient this young woman truly is. But here's the thing about Alex Eala that the ranking numbers and the match scores cannot fully quantify, and it is the most important quality she possesses. She is not playing for records. She is not playing to satisfy algorithms or broadcasters or sponsors or ranking point systems. She plays with an authenticity and a joy and a fierce competitive fire that connects with people on a level that is simply human. When she says, "Mabuhay mga kababayan," after a historic win on Stadium 1, that is not a marketing line. That is a young woman standing in the biggest moment of her career and choosing to share it entirely with the people who have carried her there on a wave of unconditional love and national pride. When she tells Coco Gauff, "Thank you for being an amazing role model," while her opponent walks off injured, that is not a calculated media moment. That is character. That is the product of a life spent learning what it actually means to compete at the highest level while remaining fully, beautifully human. Kim Clijsters, the four-time Grand Slam champion, summed it up with a line that deserves to be replayed endlessly. She said that Alex Eala has to deal with a life that is like being Michael Jordan in the Philippines, and that she should be protected like a big star. That comparison is not hyperbole. That comparison is a recognition that what is happening with Alex Eala goes beyond tennis. It reaches into the national identity of a country of 115 million people who have been waiting for exactly this, who are watching her every match from Manila at hours that would defeat most casual sports fans, who name their children after her, who travel to California with their flags and their voices and their bottomless love. She belongs to the Philippines in a way that transcends the sport itself. And so we arrive back at that moment on Stadium 1, the moment after the retirement, after the on-court interview, after the tears and the flags and the mabuhay, standing at number 28 in the world, standing in the round of 16 of a WTA 1000 tournament in her first ever appearance at Indian Wells, standing on the biggest night of her career so far. Alex Eala was not celebrating a lucky win or a gifted result. She was celebrating the product of years of sacrifice, of early mornings in Mallorca, of flying across the globe tournament after tournament, of absorbing beatdowns like Dubai 6-0, 6-2, and coming back 17 days later with better answers. She earned every single digit of that world number 28. She earned every single point that carried her there. The Pine Army is not done celebrating. They shouldn't be. This is a moment that will be talked about in Philippine sports history for decades. The night their queen stood on Stadium 1 in front of 16,000 people and showed the world what it means to rise. The California desert may be cold in March, but on the night of March 8th, 2026, International Women's Day, inside the Indian Wells Tennis Garden, it was absolutely, sovereignly on fire. This is only the beginning. The best chapters of the Alex Eala story haven't been written yet. The Grand Slams are waiting, the top 10 is waiting, and the Philippines, all 115 million of them, and every Filipino in California and around the world is waiting right alongside her, ready for every single step of what comes next. That is all for today's video. Pine Army. If this story gave you chills, if it made you proud, if it reminded you why we follow this incredible young woman across every time zone and every tournament on the planet, then you know exactly what to do. Hit that like button right now and let us push this video across the globe, because this story deserves to be seen by every single person who loves tennis and believes in the power of one young woman from the Philippines to change the world of sport forever. Drop a Mabuhay Alex in the comments right now and let us build a wall of love and support for the Queen of Indian Wells. And if you are not yet subscribed to this channel, what are you waiting for? Subscribe now and never miss a single moment of the most exciting story in women's tennis. The queen is in the round of 16. The journey continues. Philippines.